Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Bills Roundtable, sponsored by the AFC East Roundtable, powered by Bet US. Don't worry, all right? My colleague, my partner in crime, Kevin, should be getting here at any second, any minute. But that's right, you read that title correctly. Shout out to everybody in the chat that is ready to either troll me for my predictions or cheer me damn on, because we have a damn preview. We got a game, man. We got a damn game on Sunday night. The Buffalo Bills take on the Baltimore Ravens, who I genuinely believe are just a relic of the past, right? The ghost of the Baltimore Ravens still, for some reason, have our media sweethearts. And I genuinely believe that this Buffalo Bills team is going, indeed, to take care of business. That is for damn sure. I can promise you that. Speak of the devil, my good friend, Kevin. Kevin, how you doing, dude?
What's going on, Dan? How are we today?
Hanging in there, man.
Yeah.
And do you have any exciting plans this weekend, of course, outside of Sunday Night Football? And some solid matchups all across the league, by the way, I must say.
Yeah. There's definitely been some solid matchups to happen. Last week wasn't great.
No.
Wasn't overly looking forward to the matchups we had going on last week, but nothing crazy here. Watching some college football, watching some regular football, diving in. The Yankees clinched the AL East, so I'm happy about that.
Love that.
Yeah, great. They bench all their players. You're going for the 1 seed, so we got some playoff wildcard baseball on Monday. Lots of stuff. It's kind of full circle October 1st, man. It all comes together.
I mean, I'll tell you what, I think October might be the elite sports month. And so, to be completely honest with you, baseball playoffs, the NFL in full swing. I totally get it, man. What a damn time to be alive, folks. Please smash that like button on your way in. As always, this stream is powered by Bet US, the best sports book on the face of the planet. And I'll tell you what, guys, they are giving the best promo on the face of the planet. I know that each and every single one of you already have an account already, but if you don't, link is in description, because they're matching 150% of your first deposit, 125% of your second and your third, as long as you sign up, all right, by going to their website and utilize code YouTube 150. All right, you don't want to miss out on it. Now, Kev, before you got on, I said that I feel like that for some strange reason, the Baltimore Ravens are still the media sweethearts, and I have called them a relic of the past, and I think people are still thinking that they are the same team in which that they were last season, right? And I mean, when I look at this spread right here, right, have the Buffalo Bills still as 1-point underdogs. I understand that the home team automatically almost gets 3 each and every single time. So basically what they're trying to tell us is that this is dead even. But is this Ravens team good? Because I'm looking at the numbers, man. I see them ranked as 32nd in the league for secondary, for pass yards allowed. I see their offensive line, in which I wasn't afraid of at the beginning of the season. And now that they just ended up saying that their starting tackle is doubtful, their center is still questionable. Should we be scared of this team? Talk to me.
You know what's funny is that I used, obviously, I'll try to pull different advanced metrics to see if there's any substance to some of the box score stuff that you see. And what's interesting about what I read from Baltimore, their advanced analytics put them 5th. So like the Bills are 1. The Bills are 1 right now. They're, always up there, especially early on in the season. Aaron Schatz tweeted out that the Bills have been the number 1 team in the first 4 weeks over the last 3 years, and in the top 5 over the last 5. So the Bills always play super good football early on. The Bills, the difference, the biggest perspective for me is that, like, everyone's like, oh, they're a September team. The Bills play really good at the end of the year too. They just have that little lag in the middle every time to kind of lower them a little bit. However, Baltimore, I pull some of their advanced metrics, man, and 5th, like, their defense is very average. I agree with that part. Their defense definitely isn't as good as it always is. The pass rush is there, though, so we'll see if that turns up for them. I mean, offense right now, according to DVOA, their offense is 2nd. Who's won the Bills. So you got a 1 and 2 offense is based on what they were able to do. But that defense, you're right about that. The defense is a relic of the past. No Mac Donald any longer. It's definitely an issue. Like it's a problem when you lose those coordinators. Look at the Bengals and what's going on in their room with losing Callahan. Ultimately, Dan, I think that it is an issue. The defense isn't as good as it used to be. That is absolutely true.
Mm-hmm. It's funny too, because like I'm looking at their previous matchups, and I mean, while the Dallas Cowboys were definitely able to take advantage of that secondary at the end of the fourth quarter, and I mean, obviously it was garbage time. I'm sure that they implemented that. It was just like a lot of prevent because they had a healthy ass lead at
Yes.
the beginning of it. But then with the Raiders as well, right? I mean, I love the pass rush that the Raiders put on the table. I think that was probably the key contributor to them end up coming out on top with that. Secondary, I'm really not like too impressed with that. Is there a world, because you're mentioning that like these guys are top 5 in advanced metrics right now? Is there some like something that's standing out to you that thinks that these numbers might be skewed, especially considering now that they have so
Yeah,
many
a couple
the
couple
offense?
things. They're a toe away from taking the Chiefs away. You know, they're an onside kick away from some of those box score stats being drastically reduced against Dallas.
Okay.
So those are a couple of early things you can point to right there that flip the script of some of those box score stats. And then they played bad. They played a bad fourth quarter against the Raiders, just period. Like there's no so you got a bad quarter, you got a toe, and then you got an onside kick recovery. Kind of some stuff you see about like if usually when we were talking about the Bills midway through the season, they're 6-6. Usually the Bills are the ones with these kind of circumstances that are super strange, 12 men on the field, whatever, and still then making the field goal after missing it. So the Bills are usually the ones that have a few of those. They were better than that 6-6 record for sure. Then the Ravens are falling trap into that right now to where, man, they're a couple of plays from being 3-0 pretty easily. This isn't one of those things to where like they got ran out of the gym or they had a bad game. They had a couple of bad fourth quarters against Dallas and the Raiders. That's definitely an issue, 100%. I thought they played really well against the Chiefs and probably could have won. And then there's definitely, the big one right now they're talking about in Baltimore is the penalty situation. There's 32nd in the league. It's not going to be like that. It might continue for 17 weeks. It's not going to happen that they're going to be the penalty differential as well is last in the league. So at some point, hopefully not as early as week 4, at some point that's going to flip, just like turnovers or whatever one score wins, whatever you think does either progress or regress from the mean is going to start to happen with Baltimore in their penalty situation. You got the penalty situation that's heavily against them. Their O-line is the fourth quarter thing is a little bit of an issue, and then the onside kick recovery and a toe. So that's ultimately their 3 weeks in wrapped into 3 minutes.
Got it. And I mean, really, like this entire offseason, I was saying, look, like I think this offensive line is certainly going to have its issues. It sounds like the penalty issue is where they're at right now.
Penalty issue.
And that's what's going to happen with an entire new unit, losing 3 of their starters. And now you have their starting center who is questionable. And then I think it was their tackle. What was his name?
Yeah, Andrew Voorhees. He's out. He's technically doubtful, but he's not supposed to play. He's their starting left guard, Daniel Falele. Their starting right guard has been an issue all year, and Patrick Mercari. He's just not very good. So Stanley's been good, and Linderbaum, left tackle and center, are good players, really good football players. The right side's a major issue, and no Voorhees. People are actually hoping to see Ben Cleveland, their 3rd round pick from a few years ago, because they want him to take over one of the guard spots. So they're looking at that as it can't be worse. So they're looking at that as a hopeful upgrade to watch Ben Cleveland play over Andrew Voorhees. But it's not good. They drafted Roger Rosengarten in the 2nd round this year. They probably want to see him sooner rather than later, but it's not a good O-line. They're on the other side of this, Dan. They're a Dallas comeback away from being the vaunted 0-3. So at some point there is some bad luck in there. The Bills saw a lot of that bad luck last year in their run. But the penalties, that we don't know if it's bad luck or they're just bad. So we'll see that in a few more weeks.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think because I mean, I can think of some matchups that I think certainly go into the Buffalo Bills' favor. Like you mentioned, that right side of the offensive line, I think with the way our pass rush has been playing, I think that we're going to, certainly get some pressure. The problem is that we have a quarterback that's very good at evading the pocket, and he can make plays out of nowhere. But then again, he's not really somebody that's going to attempt outside of the numbers past 10 yards from the line of scrimmage. I think last time I checked, he had 12 total attempts, and the numbers really aren't that good. Like he's that dude that's going to be throwing right in the middle of the field. So I have a feeling when it comes into the pass game, because surprisingly enough, I think that that's going to be their game plan going into this game, at least early, because they see with all of the banged up, like on on that offensive line. They see how McDermott has been able to, for the most part, reasonably bottle up Derrick Henry in these past couple of matchups. And then they also see how they are able to contain Lamar. I'm kind of afraid of that middle of the field with Balin Spector starting at middle linebacker. And I'm kind of concerned about Cam Lewis at the slot with Zay Flowers and Isaiah Likely. I'm not so much concerned about Mark Andrews anymore. He just seems like a shell of himself from last year. But I think that's the one matchup that I'm really nervous about is that middle of the field and our linebackers and pass coverage.
Yeah, what's crazy about Baltimore is they're projected at 2.1 wins. So they're 1.1 wins under what they've played at. So that's usually a good tell on like what's going on. Like the Bills are projected at 3 wins. They have 3 wins. So they're playing 3-win football, very much showing up on film, eye test, whatever you want to call it. They're matching the metrics. 1.1 win variance is pretty high. I mean, I know it's early on, so it's not crazy, but it's pretty high variance for a team right now early on after 3 weeks. So we do have to watch some of the regression. Their special teams has struggled as well. I mean, I'm going to assume that onside kick has crushed their special teams numbers. But yeah, the middle of the field is definitely an issue that I'm always worried about with Balin Spector. Like, look, Dorian Williams has come on as a run defender. I think he'll be very helpful against Derrick Henry. I'm nervous as heck against Isaiah Likely or Mark Andrews, whichever tight end they decide to deploy in this specific week. It's going to be an issue. I'm not as worried about the receiver from the slot position because the Bills play such a good scheme. They play such a good cover 2 high shell, or they play such a good quarters coverage, cover 4, that you're not going to get a lot of that momentum from the slot position. It's that behind the second level, behind the linebackers, and in the middle of the field where a linebacker can feast. And the Ravens in this case do have that ability with their talent to get behind a Balin Spector. And it's never been a better time that hopefully have, from what I've heard, get back Bernard next week. So they just need to get through this and play the normal DN contain style that they normally play against Lamar and keep him hemmed in. That is the best thing that you can do. He's going to make people miss. They have a quarterback like that the Bills have, where you're just going to make people miss. However, Dan, it is a negative side would be the middle of the field is where you're worried. Conversely, whereas a positive matchup, the Bills' Khalil Shakir is definitely a very positive matchup. They struggling against slot receivers right now. I believe they're 30th in the league against slot receivers and slot receiver production. And Shakir is one of the most productive slot receivers in the league right now. So they're definitely going to struggle when it comes to their side of it as well. Darius Washington is a guy that gets a ton of nickel snaps. He's not very good in my opinion. So we'll see if they limit him by putting Humphrey in the slot, which they can do, and rolling something else on the boundary with Nate Wiggins and Brandon Stevens, because I just don't think they're going to let their normal slot Darius cover Shakir for very long, if at all.
So what about our guys on the perimeter? So do you see us because I saw that they were getting torn up right in the middle of the field as well. Like, obviously you do have Kyle Hamilton, but they were getting torn up right in the middle of the field. What about those matchups for our wide receivers on the perimeter and compared to their corners?
There should be some winnables there, especially if they decide to bounce in their best corner and Marlon Humphrey into to take away Shakir. That'll be a plus matchup for the Bills. I don't think very highly. I know they've had a little bit of production right now out of their boundary corners. They're getting some production from Brandon Stevens. He's limited some separation. Nate Wiggins is a brand new first-round pick.
Yeah.
He didn't look great in his first appearance. So the Bills definitely have some nice winnable matchups on the outside. If they decide to deploy a Keon Coleman game, they can definitely go that route. And then the difference with Curtis Samuel and Dalton Kincaid is definitely going to present some problems to a weak linebacking core right now. It's tough to say with Roquan Smith not playing very good football, though. I'd be pretty disappointed if I was a Ravens fan in what I've seen from him. Trenton Simpson has showed up a little bit. They're getting some pass rush from Kyle Van Noy and Adafi Owe. But overall, their linebacking has not been great. There's been some issues from the inside linebacker position.
Mm-hmm. Now, what's your confidence level right within our offensive line, right versus their pass rush? I just saw earlier today that Josh is number 1 in the league, I think, against the blitz right now. He's crushing the blitz so far. So I don't necessarily see them sending a lot of that, more organic pressure. Who knows? Maybe they try it, but I think it's all going to be organic up front. What is so your confidence level that our offensive line like will be able to
Bill-
rise to the occasion.
The Bills' O-line's like top 3 in every single metric, to the point where
Yeah.
Spencer Brown hasn't lost a rep.
Thank God.
Obviously, that's going to come to an end. He's not going to win every
Yeah.
rep
Yeah.
of the season. Would be absurd. Would be a first-team All-Pro plus if he even came close to that. But between Dawkins and Spencer Brown right now, I don't have any concerns there. Overall, with the level of play we've gotten so far from David Edwards and McGovern's really strong. I don't have a huge interior presence there either. That's going to scare me. Michael Pierce is a decent nose tackle, one tech, but he's nothing there is going to scare me. The Bills O-line has been playing awesome football. That's going to be the difference here between the O-lines. Awesome football. They're going to get got at some point. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But they've played really good. I'm not overly threatened by Owe. The way that Spencer Brown put Josh Hines-Allen away was an impressive film review. So ultimately, I'm not overly worried. I think Josh Hines-Allen's one of the best pass rushers in the league. They don't have to worry about that this week. They do have some good supplemental rushers and some really good, kind of like the Bills, I would say. They're in that category without a top tier guy in my mind. So I'm not worried that matchup's gonna come back and get him.
And so even with some of our like running back blocking as well, I mean, like Ray Davis has looked fantastic. I mean, last week with James Cook had a hell of a block, like right before a touchdown pass that I thought that they were truly going to get to Josh Allen. But I'm feeling pretty confident about that as well. Like I am like almost dead set that this is not going to be a ground game. So for the Bills, because while their secondary has a lot of issues, I think they're like top 5 in metrics for just about everything for run defense so far.
So I've given them a lot of praise for that, for that, some of those metrics being a little goofy because of the situations. But conversely, we don't actually know how good their run defense is,
really,
because there's based on situation and the teams that they've played. Truthfully, both teams had to come back in those games, so they weren't running the ball from the Raiders to the Cowboys. The Cowboys' run game is atrocious. It's atrocious. Like, I don't even know who their running back is. Rico Dowdle, and the ghost of Ezekiel Elliott. And the Raiders, same. Like, ultimately, they were just throwing all over the yard.
Dude, I'm not gonna lie to you, man. I was pissed off because I bought into that Zamir White hype for fantasy football this year.
It's Madison, isn't it? Now,
it's Madison now. So you're saying that we don't know how good they're run.
We don't. We have no idea. I thought it was Isaiah Pacheco looked good against him personally. To the point where I thought we were going to get a huge Isaiah Pacheco season prior to the injury. I'm not overly concerned. Both teams haven't ran the ball at all post Chiefs. On them. The situations are crazy. So just like I give them praise for being unlucky in some certain situations, I'm not going to crown that run defense. Because they've literally had to be in pass their entire 2 games, basically.
Yeah. Got it. So maybe we shouldn't even look like way too deeply into their secondary metrics either.
You could go both ways. So where I'm saying that they could be top 5 in some metrics that aren't popping out for them, I'm not ready to give them the best run defense in the league based on the game scripts that they've had.
Okay.
So we don't really know. It could be a secret game plan that the Bills go out and say, we don't think you can cover the run. You're going to be in too high against us. We don't trust that you're going to want to stop the run. So the Bills did it against the Cowboys. This is one of the best. Now, from then, the Cowboys' run defense has been historically bad since the Bills put it on film. Really. Before then, going into the Bills-Cowboys game, they were a really good run defense to the point where everyone was similarly to this game. The Bills are going to come out and throw. They're going to they're going to have to be a high-scoring game. And it was, but the Bills went out and ran down their throats. So I'm not overly sure yet that we're not going to get a lot of James Cook just because in the last 2 weeks they can't run the ball. I'm interested to see if team's going to go into too high against Josh, he's going to find success with his running backs running the ball, period. If they're going to come out of too high and they're going to run man or they're going to run different variations of a man coverage, you're going to see what you saw last week. So I'm going to assume they're not going to want to see what they saw last week, and they're going to bait him. And Josh Allen has been more than willing, since Brady specifically has taken over, they're going to run out of 2-man. They're just going to do it. So we'll see. Like, we'll ultimately know how good their run defense is after this week a little bit. Because the Bills will take the yards if the Ravens are going to sit in a deep zone.
Okay. So I think the story here, right? Because I mean, I'm very confident I mean, especially in Joe Brady. Like, I mean, I know that this team's going to score points, right?
Yeah.
So the Buffalo Bills will have success regardless of what the game plan is. But I think the story here is that how do we slow down this Baltimore Ravens offense? I already said at the beginning of the stream that we have had success against Derrick Henry in the past for the past couple of matchups. Really have done a good job with Lamar Jackson as well. But how's your confidence level in this defense with some of those key injuries? Although we have seemed to be immune from them for the past couple of weeks, I think this offense is a hell of a lot better than what we have faced so far.
The Bills are going to run a simple defense here. They're going to run a DN contain. They're going to keep, and they've done this before. It's not like, oh yeah, anyone can say that. The Bills have been successful at this before with Lamar and other running quarterbacks to the point where they're going to clog everything up on Lamar. If he breaks one, he breaks one. He's good. Like he's going to potentially be able to wiggle out of something and make somebody miss. But for the most part, he's going to be hemmed in, and he's going to have to make throws, like similarly to what they do to late in the game to Kyler Murray. Like once Bobby Babbage was able to adjust, Kyler Murray had nothing. He had nothing down the field. They put Marvin Harrison away. Put him in a booster seat. There was nowhere for him to go with the ball. So if you're going to try to make a living making somebody miss and going for 22 yards, then fine, but you're not going to do that very long. And it's not going to happen much. So they're going to run a simple defense to where they're going to take away the Lamar Jackson. And they've done it before. It's Sean McDermott. I know you can mess with something about 13 seconds, but he's a really, really good defensive coach, period. So it doesn't really matter. He has his struggles against Mahomes. It's proven. However, I mean, with a full deck of cards, Dan, he runs a solid defense with really good DB. The Bills have the number one corner in the league in advanced metrics in Christian Benford.
Crazy about that first, man.
So just because his name's not Sauce Gardner doesn't mean he's not playing number one football. He is by all the metrics. So they have a number one corner that can do everything. They have Cam Lewis, who's actually really stout against the run. He's a really good backup to have behind Taron Johnson. And they have really a guy they won't even really need in Rasul Douglas in this game. I don't really care about who they're going to trot out as their second and third receivers in this game. So ultimately, they're going to be able to then, what does that mean? They're going to be able to key more in on Lamar Jackson and what he's doing. The Bills are going to come into this game, DN contain, and they're going to press Dorian Williams to the line of scrimmage to stop Derrick Henry. That's their game plan. If Lamar is able to bite it and beat him on a play action and beat him in certain situations, going deep into the second level, into the tight end region, then they got a good chance. But the Bills are going to bank that they don't think that he is going to be wildly successful doing so, at least over 4 quarters, which whether it's the Bills 2 years ago or recently in recent football, they've had some fourth quarter struggles. And the Bills are going to hope that those fourth quarter struggles show up earlier than the fourth quarter with their game plan.
So I wonder if we could, as far as the strategy, we almost let them run on us at first and let them think that it's successful. And then we make the adjustments toward the second half.
The Bills are better at baiting you than people think. That's one of their best strategies, is baiting you into showing you their best plays. They want to see what you do in every situation. So the Bills are baiting you. They're saying, we have a good offense. We have a really good quarterback. We're not worried if you score 3, 6, 7 on the first drive. We'd rather know your hand and worry about it that way, because we know we're going to tighten in the red zone. So if we give up 3 points to get some of your game plan, the Bills are willing to make that trade because of how they lock down late in games and who's on the offensive side of the ball. Until one of those fails, the Bills are the best second half team in the league. It's pretty simple to say. It's been 3 weeks though. And they have one of the best if not the best quarterback in the league right now. So ultimately, they want you to show you what you're going to do, and they will trade you 3 points for it. They don't mind. It gets frustrating to where Derrick Henry's going for 6, he's going for 6, he's going for 8. The Bills don't care. They want to see what you're running out of. They want to see what you're running, and as you get closer, the Bills will start to care more. They'll start to care as you get in the 50 to the 40. They're going to really start to show you more what they're interested in doing. So if you're going to come out with your best 12 plays to start a game, the Bills will gladly take it. They're feeling pretty confident. They're going to hold you to 3, and then they're feeling really confident on their second half defense and on their quarterback. So ultimately, that's how Sean McDermott does it. He does it every week. He does it against every team from your low-end teams. And then if you don't move the ball like Jacksonville, it is going to be a very long day. If you can't even with your top 10 plays or top 15 plays,
so
it's not going to work for you.
So
That's what
folks,
you saw against the Cardinals. Bobby Babbage did it a little bit too much where he's like, okay, let's see what you got. And then it was like, all right, Bobby, like they're showing us some good plays. They're
yeah,
showing us how to get open. And then he flipped the switch
yeah.
and made the adjustment. And Sean was like, let's now show what we have. And they scored 3 points in the second half. Since then, teams have scored whatever it is, 13 points defensively on this defense specifically over the last 10 quarters or whatever it is.
So that was one of the most telling takes I've heard in a long time, because like it is frustrating when I see like the opposing team's first drive end in 6, 7, or 3, right? I'm like, come on, defense, what's going on? Especially with all the trolls in the chat, be like, oh man, it's gonna be a long day for Buffalo. But like now, now it makes sense. I've said that this defense adjusts very well, but the fact that you're just like, yeah, this is bait, man. Like this is Sean McDermott just trying to understand what their game plan is. And then soon as when he knows it, he just completely locks it down. And it makes so much sense now watching Bills football for the past like 3, 4, 5+ years since Sean McDermott has taken over. It's a trend, and that's what he does. And I'm surprised like more teams haven't sort of caught on.
When you're 6-6, it's frustrating because you're like, you don't have that leeway any longer.
Yeah.
However, when you're 3-0 and you're dominating games,
they
don't mind Lamar showing them their best plays to begin a game. That's why they don't like taking the ball too. So on top of it, it's fun to get up because then you see what happens in the Jags game. I'm still a proponent of doing that. Getting up in a football game. The risk is if you punt. The risk is if giving them a double dip opportunity. There's some risks there. But getting up in a football game puts you in such a good spot. And that's what we saw against the Jags. Otherwise, the defers can help you with the double dip. But the Bills don't ever mind letting you drive the field and get, whether it's 40 to 60 yards, whether it's actually score. The Bills then know what your game plan is unless you're running. You can counter the Bills. If you have second and third options that are just as good as your primary options, that's really where you can get a hold of the Buffalo Bills. And really only Andy Reid and maybe a few others have ever shown the ability to have any style of game plan like that. But when you're looking at it, like think of it as a pitcher, Dan. When you're going with just your four-seamer or you're just throwing a certain pitch, you're throwing maybe your second pitch to start the game, third pitch to start off a game. That's why pitchers sometimes get got in the first inning because they're not showing their curveball, their slider, their slurve, their sweeper, whatever it is that they may have in their back pocket. It's literally baseball all over. And that's how Sean McDermott approaches it, where if you come out with your 3 best pitches, we know what you're looking at. We know what you're throwing at us. Like we know what to adjust. However, if you can be successful with your second and third options, your third plays, that's where you can punch back to the Bills. I'm surprised more teams don't do that.
Yeah.
But really, no one's been able to do that but Mahomes. So we'll see if Lamar has, runs around and just runs for a bunch of yards to start the game and they don't have to show anything.
Good God. Folks, listen, we're going to open up to a brief Q&A segment. Please go on ahead and list off some questions in the chat. Do me a favor, subscribe to Built in Buffalo, where you can find Kevin all the damn time over there, folks. All right, link is in description. He's a proud member of the Bills Roundtable over here. And we are live with you once a week, all right? Apologies about yesterday. Things got all jumbled up, but we are here for you, giving you this damn preview. Now, while I let these questions start to pile in, talk to me about game plan. No, excuse me. Talk to me about expectations, hot take, final score prediction. Talk to me. What do you got?
I think the expectations are they just want to come out of Dodge 4-0. The numbers are monumental 4-0. I think underneath the new playoff rules, the few teams that have gone 4-0 have made the playoffs. It's a limited sample size in a few years, but it is really good football. 80% of teams that are 3-0 have made the playoffs underneath the new playoff rules. So the Bills just want to further their statistics. They don't really care how this game looks. They probably want to shorten it so they can get out of it on a 6-day week. Getting into Houston, who they seem to really care about that game. They're going to try to bring back both their hurt players. They're not looking forward or looking past Baltimore by any stretch, but it does seem like that game has a little bit of extra meaning for them to be able to really put forth their best effort inside a dome. A lot of good things to talk about next week, but their game plan is shorten it. I really don't think that they want to make this a big shootout game. They want to shorten it. And I think the Ravens probably agree from what they've had to deal with for the last 3 weeks. So I'm hitting the under because I think that teams are going to want to beat the Bills with Derrick Henry. And similarly, the Bills may have to go to, if they're in too high, they're going to have to beat them with James Cook and short passes. Unless the Bills offense just comes out and absolutely destroys them again. I'm not going to predict that.
Yeah.
But if that happens, that's the only way that you would see a high scoring game, in my opinion, is if one of the teams blows the other one out. And I don't necessarily think that that's in the card for this week. The Bills are going to try to control the line of scrimmage. They're going to try to control the game flow. Running out of too high is going to be something that you're going to see in this game for sure. And I think ultimately, like Josh Allen is going to show, especially in this game, he wants to beat Lamar for no other reason than to show that he is your odds-on MVP favorite. And losing to Lamar Jackson and then CJ Stroud does not do that for you. So I think that these two games, ultimately, we can say what we want about quarterback wins not being a stat. I think it's the biggest faux pas in sports. Like, I don't have evidence that they are a statistic, but what I do have is quarterbacks that are good win more. So I don't really care who's on the rest of your roster. Look at this year for the Bills. How many games do they win with Trubisky playing? Not many.
0.
So I don't know. I don't subscribe to the quarterbacks wins aren't a stat. Like there is some nuance. Like on a game to game basis, Mahomes, Allen, absolutely, that's not a stat. But on a whole or in large over a long period of time, I don't think that Tom Brady had a problem winning. Ultimately, it didn't matter who was on his roster. And then now you're seeing that from Josh Allen, and you see that from Mahomes. So, Dan, these matchups matter. He needs to beat Lamar. He's beaten him before, so it's not like this big issue. It's not like a big issue right now for him. But he needs to do it this year that he's going to want to put down his stamp on the MVP. And ultimately, beating him and then Stroud goes an extremely long way, even if you have a lapse at some point here soon. Needs to beat Lamar, going 4-0. You're really running away with, at that point, what would be an MVP award. And I think that matters to Josh and what he's able to do in this season. Beating Lamar is a pretty big step for him to take.
It's what he would think is
reigning MVP away.
Yeah, most definitely. Final score prediction.
I'm going to keep it consistent and go with what I had going. I'm going to go 24-20.
24-20. Okay. All right.
That's what I think. That's what I've been feeling in this game. What's the over under at 40? How many points is it? 40. What did that USA?
46.5.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Makes sense. I'm on the under at 44 points. I don't think it goes higher than that. I really don't. Really? I think if anything, it'll go lower than that. I really think that these teams are going to shrink these games, especially they're not going to want to show anything, thinking that there could be a potential playoff matchup. That stuff matters to teams that are in the playoffs. Like the Bills expect to be a top 3 seed in the playoffs. It kind of matters that, like, you want the win, but just as important as I was just talking about in the first quarter or in the first drive, the Bills want to make sure that they don't do too much early on into the peaking in September thing. They don't want that. They want to shorten this game. They want to throw out the best plays that they can, but at the same time, make sure that this isn't a 13 seconds game where you're leaving everything on the field only to win by 3 points. Like ultimately, the Bills are in a good position as it is. They're going to want to shrink the game a little bit. I truly think both teams will play some type of mentality for long drives.
Got it. All right. Interesting. And I'll tell you what, man, like this 3-game road trip is going to be taxing, right? And I said that I would be thrilled just going 2-1, like out of this stretch. But I started reflecting on the games moving forward. And I'm still confident that Buffalo is a better team than Baltimore. I sincerely think that. But out of all 3, Baltimore, Houston, and the Jets, man, if I had to lose any one of them, it would have to be this Sunday.
If you're ranking them, and I'll give you another reason to rank them this way. The Jets is important. You want to take the division. You want to punch a home game ticket. Like, that's no doubt. Houston, there's some extra meaning there. There could be jockeying for playoff position. Their division sucks. That could come down to seeding at the end of the year. And then the whole big thing. There's a lot that goes into that game. Unfortunately, probably a little bit more important to them. And then the Ravens game. Now, let me tell you one reason why it's not as important, beside head-to-head, is that for some reason you have the same record and in the same seed, and they're going to jump you for the 1 seed. That's the only reason that would make this game more important. But because, let me tell you, this is not a common game. So most people are going to forget this fact. It's not a game in common with the rest of their division. It's a matchup game. The Bills finished first, and so did the Ravens. When it comes down to your division and punching your ticket, most people forget that beside head-to-head and division record, everyone knows, the next thing that's commonly used to break tiebreakers is common opponents. And this game is not a common opponent to the Jets, to
That's
the
good.
Dolphins if they make another run at it.
Yeah.
So ultimately, if you were to lose a game, you would pick 3 games, the games that are not in common with the Jets. We're going to use the Jets. I think they're the only competition for the Bills. The 3 games not in common for them are the Lions, the Ravens, and then the Chiefs. So those 3 games are not common games for them. So if you lose those, it actually doesn't hurt you as bad as losing a division game, obviously,
Okay.
or a game that's even in common, because that is used before AFC record. The Bills are only trying to win their division to get a ticket to the top 4. That is their goal. Obviously, they do care about seeding, but the best way to do it is this game is one of those 3 games with Detroit that just doesn't ultimately hurt you quite as bad, except for head-to-head against the Ravens. If you're both in the 7 seed at 10-7, that's the only way that it would come back to hurt you, which I guess is a world that could happen.
Yeah.
But that way,
important matchup out of these next.
It is one of the 3 least important matchups of the year. And most people think of AFC record being more important. I mean, when you're going to be in a battle with potentially against the Jets, the most important thing is common opponents. Their 3 games are going to be a lot weaker. I don't know exactly. Do they play the Vikings? I don't know exactly the Jets' 3 uncommon games, but I think it's going to be like the Broncos. It's going to be 3 much easier games, so that if you end up tied with the Jets, you actually earn the tiebreaker because you get the Lions, the Ravens, and the Chiefs. They're going to get like the Broncos, the Vikings, and whoever the third team is there, the probably the Browns. Did they play the Browns? Or did they even play? Did they get they would have finished 3rd in the division last year, so they're going to get all the 3 places.
So they play the Steelers.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's October 20th. They have
Steelers finished 3rd in the division, still made the playoffs. That's right.
Yeah. And so they have the Broncos.
That's good. So a little bit of harder game than I was hoping. Good. So they got those are their 3: Broncos. What is it? Broncos, Steelers, and Vikings.
Yep.
Okay, that's not terrible. So that means the Dolphins uncommon is going to be a little bit easier.
Yeah.
They're probably getting the Browns. They're definitely getting the Browns. They're getting like the Browns, Chargers, and theirs is going to be pretty weak.
I mean, who knows about Miami at this point? First question came in. Thank you so much. Hey, Dan, and do you think missing Bernard and Taryn and Milano will finally catch up to us in this game? Me personally, my friend, I really think that this defensive coaching staff has proven over and over again that it's all about the scheme. I mean, look at all of our starters right now, and even look at where all of these gentlemen were drafted in the first place. You can get the most out of just about every single person that he plugs and plays all across this defense, unless it's AJ Klein off of the couch in the playoffs. I am completely on board with that. I feel pretty good about this defensive matchup, man. I have all the confidence in the world that we have the right game plan, regardless of the personnel. And the fact that we were able to absolutely shut out the Miami Dolphins, high-powered offense on week 2, completely shut down the Jacksonville Jaguars. Obviously, I think Baltimore is going to fare a bit better. However, I have all the confidence in the world. What do you got on that, Kev?
I think the only thing I'll add to this is Taryn is a nice weapon against Lamar. He's literally a weapon out of the slot for run defense. He would be one of the greatest games to have him in, but ultimately I trust the method. Next week, these both are going to matter a lot more, and that's what the Bills have been hoping for with potentially Tank Dell, Stephon Diggs, and Nico Collins. So not to say that doesn't matter, but these specific player matchups are going to definitely be needed next week. And I've already said maybe one of the weaknesses could be behind Balin Spector and what he's going to be able to do on a pass coverage front. So you're going to have a little bit of that, but what the Bills have been able to do out with Jamarcus Ingram, they haven't missed too much yet. And Ingram's going to be a key component of this game plan here. So we'll see the ultimate difference, but right now there hasn't been much drop off. And they've done everything possible against a Tua offense prior to Tua even going out. So that's the best offense in the league over 2 seasons. Like, we can say what we want about the Dolphins with Tua in there. He is a system quarterback. I'm confident saying that Tua is a system quarterback, but he's a good system quarterback for a coach that loves him. So ultimately, that offense runs really well with him in the game. And when he's out, look at it with things and when he's not there. And I know that's not saying much of Skylar Thompson, but what the Bills were able to do against him and healthy was really, really impressive. We can say what we want about the Dolphins, but their offense is good.
Yeah, got it. Next up, we have Josh Clark. He says, does the Ravens being 32nd against the pass worry you? I think that's sarcasm right there. But I mean, like Kevin just said on this episode right now, folks, maybe half of the reason, Kev, right, why they're 32nd is just based off of more pass attempts against this defense. You know what I mean? It's literally, it's probability, right? The more pass attempts that you have on this, obviously your numbers and your metrics are going to be lower. In fact, I would actually be interested. I'm going to pull it up right now and see.
Yards per attempt, I believe, is in line. See, that's the difference, is that most Ravens people, and I've had one on my show, are going to tell you that their per attempt or their per average or their advanced analytics, whatever stat you want to pull, are actually more middle of the pack. They're going to say total yard is a horrible like component because they're baiting them into throwing, and it kind of bit them at one point in both of those games. But overall yardage is definitely an issue. But you don't win games with yards. The Bills have only lost against the Dolphins was a game they scored had 500 yards. So ultimately, that's not where you win. You win the game moving the sticks and scoring points. So ultimately, teams like the Bills will even bait you into getting yards. But that's not how you win games. The Ravens will tell you the same thing, that like their pass defense is definitely better than the 32nd ranked. They're actually struggling the most in their safety position, in a position where it was supposed to be a strength.
Yeah, while with Kyle Hamilton and all.
Yeah, he struggled. He has struggled. He started to show a little bit better against Dallas, but he has been bad. So that's definitely been something that they're working on. And then they signed Marcus Williams to a pretty big contract from New Orleans, and he's been pretty bad. So the Bills are getting better safety play out of DeMar Hamlin and Taylor Rapp than they are out of their big high money safeties right now.
So, all right. With Josh Allen has gone 3 weeks without throwing an interception. All right. Do you think he goes 4 weeks, my friend? Does he go 4?
I mean, stats, raw odds and stats would tell you he has to turn the ball over. Like it's just
He's probably gonna be due. Like I was saying that I think it's gonna be this week. I think he's gonna throw a pick. I really, really do. I hate to say it, but
I don't think it's next week, and I can't sit here and say it's going to be 5 weeks in a row. I can't say that. So I like ultimately look like he may, like you're also factoring in at the end of a half. He could chuck something up, or in a situation that doesn't matter. So all those things that we've heard about, that go against him normally. Now that Mahomes is doing it, now it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, I know. Right?
But if you're factoring just a raw interception, I mean, sure, there's a likelihood it could happen, but if they're on it too high and they're shortening the game, like there's still an odds that say maybe next week when they're in an offensive throwing shootout, maybe where it comes, maybe it's not this week to where they're running the clock and running it in certain situations. I mean, I thought it could have been in the third quarter last week against the Jags where he's just throwing it in the end zone. Like ultimately they're up 30. He's like, let me just try to get another touchdown at that point. Like it could be one of those situations that come before like a back-breaking third quarter interception when you're tied. I think it's more likely to come at the end of the half on a Hail Mary or in a situation that just doesn't really matter. 3rd and 18 and it's like a punt. Yeah. Like those are not the same.
Like that is not. Yeah,
it's not the same. A third down interception deep into the zone on a long pass play, which Josh does have a bunch of. EPA and advanced analytics would say that sometimes those are positive plays. The team should knock that down.
Yeah.
So ultimately they're not created equal. It's not created equal with an up 30 interception either. Like none of that is created equal. There's levels to interceptions that people have not wanted to talk about. And now you're seeing what happens when he doesn't turn it over at all.
Yeah, dude. In fact, what is he? He's 25-3 when he doesn't turn the ball over. It's an insane stat.
If you're deep in the fourth quarter without him getting an interception, it's not good for you. Like I'm gonna assume that you're down double digits, if not down at least a full touchdown.
It's a garbage time quarterback. If that's the case, well,
you're gonna see a ball cap on Josh if there's no turnover. There's rarely a game where the Bills just it's a 6-6 game and he hasn't done anything but hasn't turned it over. If he hasn't turned it over, it's because he's 275 to 300 total yards and 2 to 4 touchdowns.
Yeah,
like it's not going to be good for you if he's in the zone. Of multiple touchdowns with no interceptions. The only closest that it'll look like that Cardinals game. That's as close as it'll get. If Josh is on.
Last thing as well, I noticed that he still had the glove on last week. And then there was one particular handoff where he used his throwing hand to like hand the
backwards,
ball off
yeah, the
and
backwards
stuff.
handoff.
So what do you think this injury is? Like, I mean, it's got to be worse than what he's letting on
It
to.
is like
It's got to be a fracture.
I've heard from people I trust it's a broken top of his hand. He's got a bone on the third, second or third metatarsal. I can't confirm that, but I think that it is true. I do think he's got a broken bone at the top, and it's a pain tolerance issue. So
Yeah.
there's no reason to put himself into pain handing the ball off for marginal benefit. Like, look, it looks funny. It probably isn't great on the running back end. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be an issue going, and it's not worth the fundamental minuscule upgrade to the handoff quality to his pain tolerance. It may make a running back a little bit slower out of his break. I saw that play, one of those plays, and it wasn't a great play. And I think it does affect the running back a little bit. But ultimately, I think you'll see more smooth handoffs in the next couple of weeks. But that left hand, dude, it looks so weird. It just looks weird. It doesn't look like a glove. It looks like a double glove.
It's
like a
padded
triple
as
glove.
hell, man. It's padded as hell. It like looks like back when I was.
He's got a broken bone in there. Let's call it what it is. There's a broken bone in there for sure. Like,
So
I don't know which or how.
So how long would you say that would take to heal without like? So it obviously does not require surgery, right? Or does it? And he's holding off until the end of the season, or is this something that heals?
That I don't know. Like I don't think so. Like historically it wouldn't, but like I don't know. I don't, like at the end of the year, if it's still bothering him, I guess that's conceivable. But no, I think it's probably just one of those. Ideally, like if you were a minor athlete somewhere, you're just at the gym. Like ideally, you probably sit off of it for a month. Like just straight up. Like you probably don't utilize your left hand at all for a month, and then like real load.
Yeah,
that would probably be ideal. So I'm going to say just like Taron Johnson, I'm going to say it's similar, but less severe than like a crack in your forearm. I'm going to assume you probably need 4 to 6 weeks on the hand to fully heal it. So you're going to get another 2 weeks of awkwardness. Probably after that Jets Monday night game, I do think that you'll maybe start to see that glove come off. I mean, he landed full force right elbow on the top of left hand like this.
that'll do.
Jumping over somebody too. Wasn't just like a backyard ha. Like it was from like full force of 240 pounds. Jumping over an all-pro safety. So
that will certainly do it. What's good, Dan? How do you feel about rookie wide receiver Keon Coleman for the past 3 games? Do you think he contributed right away? I am an FSU fan. Dave too. What's going on, man? Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for your question. I'll tell you what, Kevin, what I like about Keon Coleman, I mean, obviously he had that great 50-50 ball week 1, and then obviously that touchdown pass last week, which I'm glad got off of his shoulders. What I love about Keon Coleman is his run blocking. I love his run blocking capabilities. That is something that has been slept on, that not a lot of people talk about, and I think that he is a key contributor there. He had big shoes to fill with Gabe Davis from last year, but I've been most impressed with that. So in my opinion, I am very impressed with what he has put out. I think Sean McDermott likes to sprinkle in like these rookies as far as into the overall like offensive game plan. Same thing with Joe Brady. And I think that he'll be a bigger part as the season goes along. But so far, super happy about it. I did think it was funny that Sean McDermott sort of like played like the so mad father. So on that like week 3 game where I guess Keon was late or something. He goes, all right, yeah. You're
I still think he was mad for yelling at Josh in the huddle at one point last week against Miami.
Oh,
personally, I don't know that to be true.
That's why you think it is? So like he punished Keon Coleman by sitting him out the entire week 1 or something. He was like, no. I'm not doing this again.
Right.
I already had a wide receiver issue for the past 3 years. I'm not doing it right now. Yeah, you're sitting for the first quarter. Thoughts on Keon Coleman's production so far through 3 weeks?
Most snaps in the receiver room beside Mac Hollins. So 106 snaps out of the receiver position. Week 1 and 2, he was leading it. He sees a lot of snaps. He's beating man coverage, something that he was said not to be able to do. Maybe he would be decent against zone. He'd be able to sit down and find spots. But no one thought he'd be able to beat on a drag route. He shortened and flattened that drag route out and really had a really great route. And more importantly, on the touchdown to Khalil Shakir, not more importantly, but equally as important, he toasted a nice looking drag / post pattern that he optioned to free up Shakir wide open in the middle of the field based on his route running. So his route running has been elite. His run blocking has been pretty good in the NFL at this stage. His ability to win in man coverage has been good. That jump ball situation in week 1 was good. His touchdown and burst were good. Number 1 player, or I think top 3 with the ball in his hand, speed, 19 miles per hour with the ball in his hand. We saw in the gauntlet drill in the combine that maybe that's more important than 40 time. So there's definitely been some very good pros. And like obviously anything, he's been a rookie. In 60 yards or whatever it is total right now is not going to jump off the charts. But for a first round receiver, that's not Rome Odunze or Malik Neighbors. He's played just as good as anyone. And, we'll see how he develops in this offense. I do think that he'll start to develop as a true boundary as he starts to eat into Mac Hollins. I mean, Mac Hollins isn't going to lead the team in snaps for much longer.
Yeah. Look at that, man. Holy hell. And then Chuck says Ravens have trouble covering tight ends. Is that true, Kev? Still?
Yeah, so they have an issue in the middle of the field. So their inside linebackers have been struggling. So between the slot receiver and the tight end, they've had some issues, period. And that goes to Roquan Smith's struggles. He looks bulkier. He looks bigger. He looks like he was here to stop the run. He's definitely been having some issues in coverage. And their whole middle of the field's been an issue in general. So I do believe that they're going to have some issues. They had some issues with Ferguson last week. They're definitely going to have some. I mean, obviously Kelsey didn't do too much. He hasn't done too much yet in the season this year. But they've definitely struggled. They struggled with both the tight ends in Vegas. Like really had a great day. The nice looking Brock Bowers there. So yeah. It is true. The Bills have a similar setup. They're almost the same setup than the Raiders have right now. That the Bills have. So they're definitely an issue. It's definitely pro Bills. From the slot and tight end position to the Ravens defense is very positive. Bills, I would look out for another Kincaid and Shakir performance in this matchup. And then next week might be the week that you start to see more of that receiver ability against that awful secondary in Houston right
now. Folks, let me tell you what. That's going to do it for another edition of the Bills Roundtable on the AFC East Roundtable channel. So, Kevin, any farewells to the audience before we send them off?
Nothing specific. Just the Bills can really take a commanding position in this thing and really give themselves some buffer. And Josh can really settle that MVP race early. And these wins are important, not even from a I care about tiebreakers setting. They're just really important to stack them early on because it really dominates the rest of your season. And Josh wants more than anything to finally get off the schneid of these no awards, no medals, he wants to beat Lamar in this setting to prove that he is the rightful MVP. I think you'll see a really good Josh Allen over the next 2 weeks, and hopefully it doesn't equal a lag against the Jets.
Yeah.
I do think you're going to see going to freaking New York, having to worry about that is shitty. But I think the ultimate point is you're going to see a good Josh Allen over these next 2 weeks in order to really be the odds on MVP. I think you're going to get it from him this week on Sunday Night Football, where he's 6-1, I believe, and only losing to the Patriots.
Yeah.
Early on in his career.
Yep. Absolutely, man. It's going to be crazy. Guys, again, definitely go check out Kevin over on the Built in Buffalo channel. He's also on my live stream recap show each and every single day after a Buffalo Bills football game. So you don't want to miss that. Thank you so much for tuning in. Go Bills. Let's get that 4-0, baby. Let's get that respect. See y'all next time.